All right, man. Holidays. It's the end of the year. We're wrapping things up, and our producer, Large Christopher, has asked us to recap a year.
Is that the formal, like?
He's Big Chris to us.
Big Chris is the, like, we know you well. When we refer to him, like.
Large Christopher is what we put on the lower
Large
third.
Christopher is his Christian name.
When it's on the press release.
At the holidays, right? It's on the Christmas card. It's Large Christopher. Yeah. Chris has asked us to recap the year and what's happened in tech and what we think is going to happen next year, because he thinks that we're futurists, and that's fine. I didn't think that we were, and then I started thinking about it and writing things down, and maybe there's some stuff we know.
Yeah.
So we're going to start with what?
Maybe.
We're going to start with the what happened this year. A lot happened this year. I won't pretend to recap it all, but I think one of the things you and I have been talking the most about in the software development side is the landing of HTMX on the scene.
100%.
And did it come? It didn't start this year,
no.
But this was the year that it showed up at conferences and YouTube.
This was its kind of grand coming out party, and it is here, and we're very excited about it.
What are you thinking about it for Lofty, as far as on our engineering team and how we build software?
Yeah, so I think the great thing about HTMX is it comes at a time when I think that as an industry, we're starting to have conversations where we're willing to go, is there a good reason to stop momentum in this direction that we've been heading with such ferocity? Like, there's some introspective
the direction
kind of conversations
of
everything's a SPA,
front end, single page application,
everything's a JavaScript canon, all of those kind of things. Like, there's some introspection taking place, and it's producing good stuff. You know, this just to talk about APIs and kind of what's the right tool for what you're trying to accomplish. Asking that question is not something that we've been doing a whole lot recently, because there's so much. The problem that presents itself and has kept us from kind of asking those questions is just momentum. Yeah, like, it's so hard when momentum pushes hard in one direction, and there comes a point at which you no longer want to push against it, and you recognize, like, to stay relevant and to keep getting access to, like, where the collective minds of the software industry are headed, we have to succumb. And that's kind of what originally begrudgingly got us into using Kubernetes. Was there was so much
it was hard to find anything that wasn't geared around, like, here's how to deploy. We'd say, like, oh, we want to use some appliance like this database. Like, cool, here's how to deploy it in Docker.
Yep. Everything was Docker.
Okay, all right, yeah. Well, if that's how we're going to set up all of our deployments, then we need to figure out how to, like, do that in production, right? I think that HTMX is, in a lot of ways, kind of a step. It's not a step backward, but optically you could say it was if you didn't know any better. Right. It reminds me of the web that we were building in 2012. Right. It's the same technology and the same paradigms. It's just up to date, and it's sort of a reminder of, like, hey, this was fine. Right. This was working really well, in fact, and then some new things popped on the scene that were very exciting, and people went and chased it, and we just never looked back to, there's the Ian Malcolm aspect to all of this. Sure. Of, like, just because we could, did we have to, right? Right.
I think that's good. Like, there's a tendency for us to say, like, my boat has a leak, therefore I need a new boat, instead of going, like, why don't we just patch this boat? And so
a little bubble gum and some epoxy.
Yeah, exactly. It's way cheaper and easier, and you just roll on with it. And so I think HTMX is a great example of that, where we've realized, as at least those who are using HTMX or pursuing it or thinking about it, like, oh, there was a lot of value in thinking that way and doing things that way, particularly, like, more things are server side, and we start talking about Helios again, which is something that, like, kind of all but got abandoned in the thinking of people for a while.
If you're not initiated, that is hypertext as the engine of state? Engine of application state. Yeah,
that was correct.
That was, like, that's what made REST APIs a thing. REST was a way to acknowledge that. It's really cool to see that coming back. I think we're building some stuff. We're testing it. You and I both have applications that we're working on that are leveraging HTMX just to, test it before we push it out into client work.
And and it does what we kind of tried to do. The reason we went to Vue for our JavaScript framework of choice was the ability to one of the reasons I should say is that we could drop some Vue into an admin page in Django, or just kind of put
some other template server-side rendered page.
And so it allowed us a little bit of that flexibility, and now HTMX takes that even further, allowing us to have the interactivity that people expect in a modern web application, but still doing the bulk of things server-side and keeping all that logic there, and like just cleaning things up quite a bit. And so there's still going to be plenty of spas that we build for our clients, because there are tons of things that you can't do with HTMX. I can think of, 2 huge clients of ours just right off the
now
top
today.
of my head.
That was the first question. Was like, could we do that with HTMX?
No.
Probably not, but there's other stuff coming out to support it. So HTMX, that was big news for the year in the tech industry. The rest of the dev community is sort of fighting back against JavaScript finally on how to build applications, and you're going to hear plenty about that next year. It's not the top thing on my next year list, but you're going to hear plenty about it next year. What's next on our this year list, Chris? As we let the construction crew make obnoxious sounds. It's a real live functioning office, folks, on a real city block. Makes noises.
Metaverse enters the lexicon.
The metaverse.
I think another thing that stands out this year is we've had a changing of the buzzword guard. Not that our other buzzwords are gone. We still are going to hear things like blockchain a ton, especially as NFTs proliferate.
Big data, man. That's the one it's hanging by a thread. Big data's been going. It's like 7 years of big data, and it's still out there every once in a while.
You still occasionally have someone who tells you they need you to Hadoop their big data. That's not as common as it once were. Now it's data lakes.
Easy, Chris. It's legitimate term. It's not. Get your mind out of the gutter. Okay. Your mind's in the data gutter.
I just looked out the window. I didn't say a word.
But data lakes are like the new big data. But I think the big one that kind of surfaced, besides NFTs, is like Meta and Metaverse. And all of that. And everyone who read a Neil Stephenson book is like, what? How is this now a real word being used everywhere? And here we are.
Well, and
once again, momentum. Momentum drives so much about the tech world.
It's funny.
Everywhere.
It's funny because obviously Facebook changed its name to Meta, which is like, that's not the thing that made the wave go, but they saw the wave coming and just said, okay, we're just going to put our name literally in everyone's mouth because they're already saying it. But what's interesting is that this year for us at Lofty, we look at our own business and the things that we did to change our operation, because we went fully remote as a company for our production staff. We still have an office here, but it's mostly to do this for you.
These monitors are cardboard.
No, none of this is real. It's all a big green screen. It's actually Large Christopher is standing behind us wearing a green shirt. But this year we I guess over the last 2 years started investing in what we were calling presence tools, right? Some way of reproducing some of the nuance of being in an office with people together in a virtual environment. And so this is like Slack, but take it to the next level where you have some sort of visual context like you might in an office. Like you can see like people are in a room together. That's that team, they're meeting. I can hear voices through the wall. And believe it or not, there's a lot of context that comes from an environment like that. And a ton of products have emerged over the last 18 months in that space. We've tested several of them thoroughly. We're using one very heavily right now called Gather. And it's a virtual environment where we have avatars, and it's easy to drop into voice and video communication without it being like let's set up an invite that goes on the calendar, right? So it's much more fluid, much more natural, and you can see when other people are in a video call, even if you can't see their video. You can see that they're in the room together. You can see little text bubbles above the head. So-and-so's talking, right? That has been a cool thing. I wasn't calling that the metaverse, but apparently that's the word for what that is becoming, right?
Yeah,
we were calling them presence tools, but more broadly, that's the metaverse.
And Facebook, like, coming out and saying that like they're now Meta and Metaverse being in their mouth all the time. Everybody else all of a sudden stood up and was like, no, we metaverse. We're metaversing. You don't get to just metaverse by yourself.
Did you watch the CGI like Zuckerberg vision of the metaverse with him and all his? I mean, it's good. There's so much meme gold in there. They'll be harvesting it for centuries. It's like a deep space asteroid. There's $1 trillion of meme economy in that video.
There's so much to be mined.
Elon Musk needs to get in there with a big drill and just start going for it.
Yeah.
No, it's good if you haven't seen it.
I'll have to check it out.
I believe you. It's a vision casting of like in the metaverse we'll be able to do things like this, and then bad CGI of how it might work. You know.
He is really great at giving us the cringiest of stuff. Like how.
It's funny because it's a robot interacting with robots. Going like, this is how the robots might behave. Said the robot.
Yeah.
Sorry, Zach.
Quick, put some Sweet Baby Ray's on the bookshelf so that I look like I eat things.
Do you like to barbecue,
of course
Senator?
I do.
But the metaverse is real, no matter how cheesy all of that is, and it's a cheesy name for it. But what's happening is
we don't get to pick the names.
No, I know we never do, or at least those of us who do, we pick too scientific of ones or something.
Oh, for sure. Well, and I mean honestly, like I make fun of the naming, and they're like, we don't get to name it. It's just like the things we do get to name, we're just like, oh, naming's hard. Never mind.
Yep.
Naming variables is hard. So, I wouldn't imagine like naming a whole nother concept.
There's a whole lot of emerging tech in this space. You've seen it if you've gone to a virtual conference this year. Spatial chat would be a metaverse type application. There's a product called Sococo. Sococo's not dead. They just got acquired, and it took them forever to like come back from the grave. They're sending me emails about bills they think we own. But
another purchase tool got acquired that we were using. Like I'm seeing everybody because there's such a play for this space now.
There's people are rolling it up, and so you're going to see more of these. But like probably the most mainstream thing that's got wide adoption would be like Slack adding the huddle feature.
Right.
Slack's a little bit behind it. They're moving slow. They're not taking on like a physical presence thing, but they're sprinkling in features like the huddle. That's a little more metaverse. You know, pop in a room, flip a switch, you're in a voice call.
I just had a realization. We built a foundational piece of the metaverse for a client many years ago for the enabling of the purchasing of goods.
Oh yeah.
Digital space.
Oh, I know. I thought about that too.
Like,
I thought these people were crazy, but we took their crazy idea and we went and built it for them. No, they were just like 5 years early.
Yeah, which is terrifying considering who these people are. Like, how are they ahead of?
They weren't tech evangelists, but honestly, yeah, they were onto something there.
They were,
and they were too early, and it didn't work. But like, yeah, we did craft the proto metaverse.
Yeah, we have contributed e-commerce, excuse me.
Yes, virtual reality e-commerce.
Tooling to a metaverse.
We need to write a case study on that. Now that it's metaverse, yeah.
Yeah, now we get to use that buzzword along with our work.
The to-do list being filled out in the background over here.
For every iPhone, there is a Palm Pilot.
Yes. That was definitely the Palm Pilot of the metaverse.
That was definitely the Palm Pilot.
All right, what do we got next? Metaverse. You're gonna see there's plenty.
Data science ubiquity.
Okay, I wrote that. Let me explain. Data science. I said data science ubiquity. Okay, that's very broad. The thing is that looking at our own client work over the past year, what I am seeing is organizations. When I say data science ubiquity, I mean companies are now building data science teams internally at organizations that were not traditionally software teams.
Yes.
And so we're seeing this in like professional services, civil engineering, architecture, where you have organizations that are non-traditional, like not traditionally tech companies at all, that are investing in data science, and they don't have software teams, right? They're just investing in the ability to do analytics work. And that's been happening for a while, but this has been the first year that we're talking to clients that aren't tech startups or attempting to do something disruptive in their industry with data science, that are just merely like, we're a firm with 50 employees and one of those employees or two of those employees is in the data science world.
It's the next evolution of we need a SQL guy or we need an Excel guy. Like I've worked at plenty of product companies where there's like someone on a BA team or something loosely adjacent to that is the SQL guy. And like we go to the SQL guy when we don't want to disrupt the engineers, but we need some data that we don't have. Yep. And so the SQL guy goes and writes his SQL query, and that's all he does, and he's the king of the business folk.
Yep.
And so
he's the wizard that they they write notes at the bottom of the tower and slip them under the door.
Right.
Say, please, exalted one.
But he doesn't get to be in the he hangs out over there.
The good news is
he
that
gets more free lunches than we do.
This person's not real anymore. I mean, there's still SQL. There's still database administrators. There's like teams that are doing like statistical analysis beyond just like, can you go aggregate information in the database for us?
Yeah, totally.
You know?
But now instead of like we got a SQL guy, so it's like we got a guy who used Jupyter notebooks when he got his degree.
Yep.
And that you now get the data scientist title. And that's not. I'll back a little heat off of that because it's not like it. I don't say that to like devalue people who can use that tools. Use those tools in that way. Like that's valuable.
Yeah.
Who are like new roles, new kind of skill sets, and when they get a result, everybody gets excited and doesn't know what to do with it.
That's kind of maybe the segue for us here, because that kind of feeds into what I see coming. This is a change in the business landscape that is, in my opinion, foreshadowing some future change. Mm-hmm. So we'll talk this year, obviously not an exhaustive everything that happened in the software development tech world, but let's do the list because I've already forgotten what they were. Metaverse is a thing. We're talking about it. You're seeing tools emerge. It's going to start popping up in things like Slack and other places. Data science ubiquity. You've got regular companies hiring and building data science teams, and also
HTMX.
That's very close to the metal of what we're doing here.
Yeah, the change to be more deliberate with tooling and not being consumed by momentum.
So that's what we saw this year that we felt like were biggest sort of landmark directional shifts in our industry and the work that we're doing.
And NFTs.
Of
which I have 7.
We produced one on our podcast.
Yes, we did.
That's right.
I actually don't own any NFTs.
You don't own that? You don't?
I don't think I own that NFT.
Dang.
No, I shouldn't.
You minted it.
I did create it. Maybe I do own it. We tried to give it away.
Belongs to all of us. It's not really how it works at all.
That's literally the opposite of how
markets
NFTs
just
work.
crashed. People are watching me say that, going like, I don't know anything about this NFT stuff.
I think you technically just funged the
I didn't know it was socialism. Yeah. I didn't know.
Funging the token needs to be a new phrase now.
Funding secured. We are going. All right, let's talk about next year. Besides the pending crash of the NFT economy that I just spurred.
That happened when everybody realized that you could right-click and save image as off of Twitter.
Yes.
People didn't see that one coming.
Yep.
Just like, it's true, you technically still own it, but you've given everyone a free copy of it by putting it available on your Twitter profile.
You have licensed it thusly.
And then like many people raged into oblivion.
This is going to be the first year where you have people buying electric vehicles on a much larger scale, and they're not buying Teslas. They're not buying luxury vehicles necessarily, because
it'll move from early adopters.
Yeah, it's going to move from early adopters to the more average person. And I'm not necessarily talking about like income average or demographic average. I just mean that look out there on the road and you've got Rivian's about to start shipping vehicles. Canoo is shipping vehicles. Tesla definitely with like the Model 3 and some of their other models have a more like mid-market type vehicle coming in. But the point is that
and even the major manufacturers are having a big release.
The F-150 Lightning. Yep. We've got chip shortage stuff that may play into this and delay it a little bit. But the point is you're about to see them all over the place, right? And because you're going to see them all over the place, there's going to be a whole lot of tertiary industry around that. Like the most obvious one is you're going to start seeing electric vehicle charging stations all over the place because that market's moving. We've done a little bit of work, some strategy work in that industry, and we kind of see how those plans are unfolding. You've got infrastructure dollars coming out of the current federal administration that are funding a lot of that. And I think that we're going to start to see, sort of an Apple versus Android situation there of some of these vehicles are going to have more open walls and some of them are not. I don't know which will be which, but like I think we'll start to see things like an app store for the screen that's running in your vehicle.
100%.
Open source tools that are showing up
brings me
for
such
it.
pain.
Yeah, and yeah, I'm not sure how I feel about it. Like we don't need to gamify driving. Canoe. That was.
Looking
But
at you.
driving's already gamified, right?
Yeah.
I play a game every day called "Will I Die Before I Get to Work?"
Yeah,
it's so far I've
The
won every
highest
time.
stakes of games.
Yeah, but
Keep winning that
yeah,
one,
you don't want to
buddy.
lose. Yeah,
No.
it's you only lose once. One's all you need. But yeah, so I think that you're going to start to see that. I think that there's going to be, if you don't already have one in your town or city, EV specialized like vehicle repair. Like these are the things that I'm thinking are going to happen because again, it's moved out of it just being Tesla's, and Tesla's kind of the walled garden version of it. It's kind of the iPhone. You know what I mean? You don't have, you're getting your repairs done from Tesla themselves. You're taking it to the dealer. But with all these other things coming out, I think that that's where you're going to start to see just a whole general industry around EV starting to pop up that doesn't exist yet. But it's coming. Thoughts?
No, I completely agree. I think that, especially with the initiatives that are taking place from the government,
Yeah.
there's a lot of money to be made and a lot of excitement around the potential of electric vehicles.
Yeah.
And the fact that the barrier to entry is getting lower and lower and lower. There's a whole market that
And just the
wants
inventory
that.
exists now,
Sure,
right? Because
sure.
there were people that wanted it that just couldn't get it, right? And chip shortage, yes, I know, but like we just posted that story that went out on some of our social of like the F-150 Lightning, was it? That they had to take the pre-order page down. Because
really?
they got so many pre-orders like backed up that they were like, all right, so that's like our production capacity until the year 2026. So we're just going to turn that off now. You can't pre-order those trucks anymore because they just don't have a foreseeable them all. And you know, that was like the one that's not a cheap truck.
No.
But it's price competitive with the Rivian, right? A lot of trucks are expensive. You both bought trucks this year.
Yep.
I'm not telling you anything you don't know.
Trucks are expensive.
They've gotten pretty expensive, right? So when you start looking at a $70,000 truck, that's an expensive truck, but it's not like 2 or 3. It's not like you bought a Lamborghini, right? When you buy a truck like that. And so
We're going to start seeing electric trucks in hip hop videos.
I think you are. I think the fact that like those
Besides
that,
the Cybertruck, like I'm pretty sure everybody would want.
people
the
are
Cybertruck.
worried that like truck people aren't gonna want to drive an electric vehicle. They want to smell the emissions coming out of it. And I think that just got proved completely wrong. That like they couldn't sell enough of them. It's just like, oh no, there's plenty of market for people that want to run a 240 volt table saw in the back of their work truck. It's awesome.
I do love the idea of putting in the fake scent, like the fake sound that you put on an
Remember
electric vehicle?
when the
Yeah,
plug-in
so you hear,
hybrids
like,
had the
wee-
subwoofers that made engine sounds?
Yeah.
Yeah.
This will be like that with a truck, except it's just like
It just smells like diesel.
it's an aerosol can in the back seat that's blasting the smell of carbon being burned.
Skeuomorphism has like come into the physical world now.
Oh, totally. Well, I mean,
that's the metaverse right there, man.
Car manufacturers already shape doors to make a specific sound. Mm-hmm. So because they've found that
Makes that ka-chunk.
people want
that,
the ka-chunk.
You gotta, if you don't have the ka-chunk,
If you don't have the
if you-
ka-chunk,
if
is
you
your
shut your
door-
door and it's like,
is your
that's not. You don't get any confidence walking away from your vehicle like that.
So when there's audio engineers being involved in the creation of doors for vehicles, like
well,
we're
data
already-
scientists.
Oh, of course.
They're doing the sentiment analysis. On,
Yeah,
like,
somebody's
their
got to
facial
some-
recognition. Like, did they grimace when their door shut?
Somebody's got to set sail on that data lake.
It's happening, folks. EVs. All right, what's next? What else is coming up?
You can Hadoop your E EV.
Applied AI in ProServe.
All right, so this is, we talked a little bit about data science ubiquity. We're seeing that in a lot of industries. The one that the place I talked about is seeing that in like a traditional professional services environment. We have witnessed this as a company amongst our own client base and new clients and prospects that data science is showing up in professional services. And I'm thinking of things like, I mean, it's all of it. FinTech is like the accounting
Right.
version of that.
Yeah.
But like, again, civil engineering, like waste, all of these, kind of traditional engineering and professional services type industries are hiring data science teams. And what that means is those data science teams are going to produce some model, some algorithm that provides a bunch of business value, and therefore the fruit of that labor that's being invested in right now is going to be applied AI in those industries at like the firm level. You know what I mean? Not necessarily like, there's already stuff going on at a large scale of like licensable technology that all the firms can use. I'm talking about like at the firm level, you've got individual contributors working on data science right now, and they're going to produce a model that needs to be applied to the business somehow in the form of machine learning and AI.
So, see, I think that's an interesting consideration, because I think that in the pro services specifically, I would think there'd be a tendency towards wanting the information, but obviously when we talk about AI, we talk about something taking action on information. So there's an action component when you bring in the term artificial
intelligence. Or at the very least, like decision support for taking
exactly.
action.
And I think that's the key, because I think that in the professional services, it's finding a place to support the professionals rather than take action on the professionals.
100%.
We've seen our clients through literally discovery calls and consulting calls with us think that they want artificial intelligence in the sense of, we want the machine to take this information, derive meaning from it, and then take action on it or make decisions on someone's behalf. But in reality, the people who would use that tool, come to find out, they don't, it's the old trope of like, ain't no robot gonna replace me. Like they want to be enabled to do their job and do it better, but they don't want to be replaced by it.
It's augmented intelligence more than artificial intelligence.
Yeah, I totally agree with you there.
That's what we're seeing, right? That's what we're seeing in our client base.
Augmented intelligence.
Our clients are, we didn't come up with that. That was one of our other clients. That tagline might be up for grabs.
Yeah, let's say.
I don't think they're using it anymore. But that's what we're seeing in our client base is
ahead of the time again, I guess.
We're working with early adopters on this side of it, and the early adopters are doing things like applying a model that the solution here is not an artificial intelligence produces a schematic and stamps it and says, I, the AI engineer, approve this. But what is happening is the artificial intelligence is designing a schematic or surfacing information, and an engineer that normally would go out in the field and do some field work is sitting at a desk with information that's been collected in an automated way, and then they're using their skill set as an engineer. And frankly, the industry has to catch up to this, because there's no precedent for who do you sue if the AI gets it wrong, right? So you still have to have quality control and quality assessments happening in the firm. But that's what we're seeing, is that engineers able to sit at a desk and work on information that was collected very accurately and potentially even in a more safe environment than going out and doing it in the field, making decisions, but the engineer still stamps it at the end of the day.
Right, exactly. Right? Having that human sign off is something that I think will happen for a while.
Yeah,
but I think
it's hard to imagine us just like, mostly I think like that's sociologically, we just need someone to persecute if it goes wrong. The robots they feel no remorse.
Absolutely. Feel bad.
We've all seen the movies.
You just retrain them.
Yeah.
They retrain that model.
So that's definitely happening. We're already seeing it. I don't know exactly what it looks like over the next couple of years. I just know that it gets bigger, and it's going to be just like the EV thing. Right now we're seeing it with the early adopters. There's going to be a second wave, a third wave, and so on of that.
Correct.
Last thing to round it out.
Drones everywhere.
Drones everywhere.
Oh man.
We already have that.
Yeah, drones are, I'm seeing drone launch pads being built at Walmart and all kinds of stuff. And I saw a post on a social media that was a photo of downtown Bentonville taken at night. And this kind of like demonstrates the world that we're entering in a strange way. It was taken at night, beautiful photo. Someone's just like, I love how Bentonville looks like a Rockefeller painting this time of year. And then immediately below it was this giant disclaimer of, this photo was taken by me. I am a licensed drone pilot.
I'm a Section 107 pilot.
Yeah. I had approval from the FCC, FAA, and this like giant drone photo disclaimer that came across the bottom of that.
Well, and so that's the thing, is that there's a lot going on the hardware space and has for a while. Drones are already everywhere. Like, it was like 4 or 5 Christmases ago that every kid got a drone, you know. And like what
fidget spinners, but
what we're yeah, exactly,
but,
fidget spinners, but like with, you know, higher consequence if you run them into something.
Exactly.
Again, we're seeing this in our clients, a lot of data collection happening with drones. That hardware is getting better and better. So yeah, so one of the things that happened this year is a couple of things changing, at least in the U.S. from a legal perspective. Previous administration leaves. There had been some embargoes on one of the major drone manufacturers. Right. I don't have to use its name, but it's the one you've heard of, I believe, based on like what chips were in it and where they were sourced from. But you could either not procure them on government contracts or potentially even use them on federal work
I believe
altogether.
I believe that's the case.
And so that was really holding a lot of things up, because the best hardware and the best imaging and all that stuff was in that world. That's out the door. That's been lifted. So things are moving in on that front. FAA passed a couple of new sets of regulation that they've been adding. They've been phasing in stuff. And so this is coming straight from like Transportation Secretary. Mm-hmm. One of them is the ability for Section 107, I don't know. Basically the amateur pilot, where you actually you get licensed. Whoever put that disclaimer on that Instagram photo,
right?
Those pilots can now fly at night and over crowds. You couldn't do that before. That was illegal. So what that means is that, like, so think about what that means from a data collection standpoint of like going out and imaging stuff. There's now an additional 12 hours of the day that you can capture data, right? So the window just got opened up, and it got opened up at a time when there's potentially less traffic. We know that time of day is a factor in some of the data collection we've seen on imaging. You know, if you're doing like infrared and things like that, the amount of sunlight, there may be practical applications of flying at night, is what I'm saying, that are opened up. And also the ability to run those imaging where before you couldn't do it over traffic or crowds, and now if you're properly licensed, the FAA has gone ahead and said, okay, this is safe enough to do. So those doors are opening. I think that's what we're seeing is there was already a lot of stuff, you know, sitting in the wings, so to speak, ready to go on drone flight, and a bunch of doors are opening simultaneously, and that's just going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. You know, there's the drone delivery stuff that all sounds fun, but there's a whole lot going on behind the scenes of just autonomous vehicles collecting information, again, in professional services, etc.
We should all get used to hearing the buzz of a drone periodically when we're at an event of some kind.
It's very dystopian, and my 4-year-old son loves it when he hears a drone. He's like, Dad, do you hear the drone? And I'm like, yes, this is our dystopian nightmare that we live in. Mm-hmm. But he thinks it's cool, and he goes outside and waves at it. Hello, surveillance state?
How often are you guys getting buzzed by drones?
Well, we go to a lot of van life festivals, a lot.
Yeah, imagine.
It's very popular. The van life community is very much embraced. They are the early adopters of the non-commercial drone applications.
That and like burn events.
Ton of it. Well, you get sand in your rotors. I've got a drone down at home because it's got sand in the motors.
Shouldn't have taken it to burning Flipside.
Yeah, that's what happens. Mm-hmm. Also, you know, another thing in there, there's now a drone ID protocol that the FAA has licensed. I don't know exactly how it works, but there is a way to remotely identify a drone in flight, sort of something like a transponder.
And its owner?
I believe, because you gotta know who is licensed to fly that thing.
Wait till the NRA finds out about that.
There's plenty of people will be upset about it. But I think that I can imagine a whole lot of applications of technology there. You know, traffic control. We talked to a client, half a decade ago, 5-6 years ago, and they were wanting to roll out an open source platform for drone traffic control. That was like based on Elasticsearch and the ability for people to like self-report in and you know, in a decentralized manner, not like blockchain decentralized, but like not government controlled, be able to view, you know, air traffic and what stuff was going on in real time.
Ways for drones.
Exactly, like to be able to see it and like, oh, there's another drone over there, but like to be able to see what altitude is it operating at, etc. And I don't know if they made it. They were too early. They were the Palm Pilot, but there's an iPhone version of that coming out to steal from our producer's lexicon there. Mm-hmm. So I think those are the big things that I see coming up. AI being applied more in professional services. Drones are a big component of that, at least on data collection. And you're going to see just, the average neighborhood electric vehicle and everything that comes with that. All the gadgets and gizmos at the store and app stores and things like that. It's all coming. And there's going to be a lot of stuff for us to build in that world, I think, from a software perspective.
Software is just going to continue.
Yeah, this isn't the future of the universe. We're talking future of software here.
Yeah, like software is going to continue to be on things more and more. And like it's exciting and terrifying all at the same time when we look and see new things for software to be on and find the appropriate space to like implement and like it's exciting.
Well, we'll certainly
to see
find the most inappropriate space to implement first.
That's
right?
true. Yeah.
You think about like IoT and everything in your refrigerator having an IP address. We've been doing that for a while.
Yeah.
Wearables are very exciting, and electric vehicles like a giant wearable IoT device.
Yeah, well, and
it goes with you everywhere, and it's always connected to the internet. And we're going to find really stupid ways to get that wrong.
So that's where I think that the one other thing that we'll see a new kind of like thrust from will be like in the wearables, especially like as we've talked about metaverse here. We're going to take that to wearables next year because you're just going to have the word metaverse beat into your brain enough that you will just accept it as important, and then next thing you know, all wearables will be like tied to metaverse, and then we have new market and new everything.
That's one of those things that it's like the year of the wearable has been coming over and over and over and over. This is the year for it. This is the year for it. And it's going to be like podcasts where everyone got worn out on it and it's not a thing anymore. And then it's going to come back in such a big way. And it's things like
QR codes. Also
QR codes. That's another great example. I'm looking at every app we're looking at for the next year has got QR code components in it. It's the hottest technology in 2012.
Yeah.
And now it's coming back. And the reason why is because now everyone's actually got a scanner.
Yep.
Yeah, it's just right in the camera on your phone.
Yeah.
You don't have to go download something. And metaverse is becoming this thing. And so like having glasses with a camera in them, well, now there's actually something practical that's not a novelty, to wearing those, because it's going to tie into other systems.
Right.
The ecosystem is there. I think wearables and metaverse are almost, in a way, kind of the same thing.
And we know that the moment that the market like feels appetite, they will throw their full weight toward it. And I think the appetite has officially been proven for something like that.
Yep.
And it's gonna happen. So
I'm dressing up as a QR code for Halloween next year. I don't know how I thought about that, and I can make it go to whatever I want. That's like obviously someone did that.
Oh, definitely.
That's next year's thing. So
you gotta do it.
Thanks for tuning in to check out our kind of year wrap up. 2021's been a wild one. Welcome to the new Lofty office tour coming soon. We promise. As soon as we get some things finished around here, we stop sitting on milk crates.
Got to get my Google glasses out of the box.
Got to get your Google glasses
so that
out.
we can do a tour with them.
But yeah, this is what we see going for. This was a great year. We see some really cool stuff coming, and we wanted to share it with you. Be sure and subscribe if you want to hear us muse about these things. And if you want to follow our journey, especially on HTMX, because there's a whole lot of HTMX content coming your way, courtesy of our director of engineering here. He's got 10 videos in the pipeline. He just promised up and down. Right, weren't you just saying that like you were just going to drop those all like next week or something?
I think like 13 videos.
13 videos next week, yeah. So like no pressure or anything. Like he's not committed to it, but yeah. It's going to be exciting. Seriously, I'm excited about it. 2022, big year.
Cargo pants.
I've got the next evolution of the cargo pants. Chris, you want to talk about the future in this video and like where it's headed? It's here. Technical pants.